All right, why don't we get started? And if people join in or drop out, that's not a problem. So this is going to be session 2 of our Google Classroom PD, Hangout on Air. And just to get started, I wanted to find out from people, did anyone have problems creating a classroom or inviting people into that classroom from last week?
Nope, not at all.
No. Nope.
All right, so fairly simple.
Yep.
Yes.
So I'm curious, the different people who are in the Hangout right now, what approach do you think you would take with your students? Would you send them the actual invitations, or would you just give them the code to join? What do you think is the easiest way?
I think giving the code would be the easiest way, only because I don't know how often they check their emails, so if I needed them to join right away, unless I gave it as a homework assignment to join. I think having everybody in the classroom on a computer and having them go at it like that is probably the easiest way, because that way I can ensure everybody's on.
Right.
And at the elementary level, they don't have email, so it's the only way.
Right.
Yeah. So our elementary students, they don't have email either. So the other way that they can do it, Diane, too, is if you send them the invitation, if they open up the classroom app on their computer or on their Chromebook, they'll actually see an invitation there. But the code, I agree. I think the code is the quickest, easiest way to do it. Okay. So what I had said on the email was, I think what we wanted to try and do tonight was go through announcements, which are great. They're really simple and easy, and that's sort of the place that I usually start with teachers when they're getting used to classroom. And then we can introduce assignments. Assignments are definitely the most powerful part of classroom, and there's a lot of nuances to them. So I'm thinking that we'll be working through assignments and trying things probably for a couple of sessions. And Google, of course, released some new features which we can go through while we're looking at announcements and assignments, which is kind of cool. So I think that'll be the plan for tonight. And does anybody have any other burning questions that came up this week that they wanted to make sure we talked about before we dive in?
I actually have a question about announcements, and I don't know if is that something that can be interactive with the kids? For example, I wanted to post, I kind of wanted like a blog type situation so that I could just pose a question. I don't want them to produce a long written response, but just a response to, you know, like a quick comment on a reading that they've done or something like that, where it's back and forth and they can comment on each other's posts as well as respond to what I've asked. So would an announcement be the place to do that, or is there
an announcement is a great way to do that. The other way that you can do that too is through a question. I think using announcements, and if you give students the ability to comment, it makes for a really kind of cool safe space for classroom blogging, right? Because you can post something and your students can respond and they can comment to each other, but no one from the outside can see anything. So I think that's a terrific way to do it, and so that's one thing we can play with tonight. The other thing is you can use the question tool, and you can certainly play with that before we do a session on that, but the question tool, if you just post a question and you give them sort of an open-ended thing, they can also use that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure which was the best venue.
Yeah, I think announcements are great for that. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, how are you? It took me a while to get this to work.
No problem. So, Barbara, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into getting started with announcements. And so last week, one of the pieces of feedback I got, and it was great feedback from Kim, was when I was sharing my screen, I didn't lock it to my screen, so anytime people made noise, the screen kept shifting to their camera. So I'm going to try that today, and if it doesn't work, let me know. So I'm going to quickly see if I can share my screen here. And let's do that. And we might get that crazy. Yeah, that's all right. Present to everyone. And let me see. I need to lock it to myself. All right, so let's try that and see if it sticks. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
I can see a picture of all the classrooms.
Perfect. All right. So I'm going to go into, so I'm serving as the teacher right now, and the classroom that we're using for this session is the one that's called Learn Classroom by Using Classroom. So I'm in as the teacher, and to start, I'm going to make the screen a little bit smaller so that the video doesn't cover up the buttons. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So to post an announcement, and an announcement is probably the simplest way to start with Classroom, all you need to do is down at the bottom of the screen when you're in your classroom as a teacher is click on that plus button, and the very first choice is create announcement. So here I am in my classroom as a teacher. When I click create announcement, it gives me a very, very simple window. So the first thing is just what do you want to announce to your class? So it could be please remember to bring earbuds tomorrow because we're doing park, right? So it could be something as simple as that. It could be, Erica, like you were talking about, it could be a question. It could be a writing prompt. It could be lots of things. But I'm just going to use this as an announcement. You'll notice that under that, you can actually see, you can attach files, you can attach Google Docs, YouTube videos, and links to websites as part of announcements. So let's just say I had a website that I also wanted to include with this announcement. If I click that little link button, then I would type in the address or copy and paste the address of the website. Okay, and then click the add button, and you'll see it adds a link to that website. And I can keep adding more websites if I'd like. All right, so I could do CNN.com, whatever it is. So you can add multiple things to an announcement. So it could be a picture you found. It could be a Google Doc you want kids to read. So once I've got what I want the announcement to be, the other neat thing that you can do is if you're a teacher that has multiple classes that do the same thing, like multiple sections, you can click this little pull down here, and I can send this announcement to multiple classes at the same time, which is really cool. So, I'm sorry, yes?
I'm sorry, I don't have any image at all. All I have is a blank blue screen.
Does everybody else see my screen?
I can
Yes.
see it.
So,
See it.
Erica, what you might want to try is using the refresh button at the top of your screen in the browser and see if that clears it up. And hopefully that'll do it. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, how are you?
Well, how are you?
Great, thanks.
No,
All right.
I'm not seeing anything still.
So Erica, the other thing that you can try if you're brave, and I know you're waiting for the bread timer to go off, is you can exit the Hangout and then try and get back in if you want to try that.
Oh, the buzzer just went off, so I'm going to X out and I'll try. How do I?
All right, perfect. So to get back in, do you know how to get to Hangouts in your email?
Yep.
Yep. So you would go to Hangouts, and there should be a video call from Paul Barrett, and you can
All right.
just join right back in.
All right. Hopefully, I'll be back in a minute.
All right, cool. I hope the bread's good. Okay. So what I was just saying is, so like Cindy Ripley, who joined the call a little while ago, she's one of our middle school teachers. If she has 6 sections of similar classes, she could post the same announcement to all 6 of them or all 4 of them just by choosing from here. So it really makes your job a lot easier as a teacher. I'm just going to post this to this classroom here. The other thing that you can do is next to the post button, you can schedule this and say, I want this to be posted tomorrow morning at 9:30, but I want to do it now so I don't forget. So that's a brand new feature. So we could say, schedule this tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. And then when I click schedule, this actually won't be posted until that time happens. And you'll see that on my screen here, I have a little rectangle that says Save Posts. And if I click in there, I can see the post that's scheduled and waiting to go out. And if I wanted to, I could actually, I think I can change the time. Let's see. Yep, so I can get rid of the time there, or I could change it to something else. So if I said, oh, you know what, I really meant to send that out at 10:30, I could change it here, or I could get rid of schedule entirely, and I could post it right away. The other feature that you'll see here, which is really cool too, is save as draft. So if I want to do some work on an announcement, but I don't want to send it out yet, I want to maybe go back and do some work on it later, but I don't want to lose everything I was thinking about. If I choose save as draft, it won't send it out to the classroom, but here at the top of my stream as the teacher, there's a section called Save Posts, and if I click on it, it'll bring up the draft. And so then I can edit it. Let's say, oh, I don't want to include CNN. I could get rid of that. I could add more things here, and then I can post it. And it gives me a, are you sure you want to post this? Students will see the post in their streams immediately. So when I click post, it'll be sent. So if you go and look in our classroom, you should see this post. And what Erica was talking about was if you wanted to use this as an interactive blog with your students can add comments right to that post. So if you open up Classroom and you see that post, if you want to add a comment, we'll all be able to see that together. So let me stop sharing my screen here. There we go. Okay. So how did people do finding that post and adding a comment?
I haven't found it yet.
All right, let's see. I'm going to go in as Craig, the test subject. Oh, Mark did it. Of course, Mark had to be first.
Of course he did.
Very impressive, Mark. Yep, I see it as Craig, so I'm going to say, of course, Mark was first. Whoops.
Mark's trying to be nice over here.
You did very well. I'm impressed. Kim would be very proud of you, Mark. So that's really easy to do. So an announcement can be very simple. It can be, like I said, you can attach things to it to make it a little more complicated and rich, but it doesn't have to be anything more than that. And remember from last week, if you want students to be able to comment on your posts and your announcements and assignments, you can do that in the student section of your classroom. So if I share my screen again, and let me do that. Let me go and remember you can do that with the student section. So present to everyone. So here in the student section of the classroom, this is where you can change whether you want students to be able to only comment, post and comment, or only you can post and comment. So you have the ability to do all of that yourself, depending on what you prefer. So any questions about posting a simple announcement?
No.
Okay. So this is one of the assignments for next class, and this is obviously a very simple assignment, will be to post an announcement to one of the classrooms that you made for the assignment for this week. So announcements are pretty simple, and most of you have probably already done that. So let's dive into assignments, because that's really sort of the power of Classroom. And like I was saying before, there are a lot of different things that you can do with assignments, so we'll probably stretch this over a couple of sessions so we can go pretty deep into it. Okay. Mark.
Can you add Erica?
Yeah, let me go grab...
The comment, can you invite her back to the Hangout?
Okay. Oops, let me see. Mark, what is Erica's last name? I just don't have it in front of me. Doherty. And is her email address edoherty@Lincoln-PS?
Doherty E.
Doherty E. That's why it's not coming up. Okay. Thank you. Yep, got it. All right, so I just invited Erica back. Oh, terrific. Okay, so let's talk about assignments. So assignments, the thing that you can do with an assignment that you can't do with an announcement is assignments, You can still post a question. You can still attach an image, a link, a YouTube video, a Google Doc. You can do everything that you can do with an announcement. But the other thing that you can do is you can actually give students work. They can complete the work, and they can return it back to you. And you can have that process go back and forth as many times as you want with a student. So for example, if I sent out an assignment to this class, and I wanted you to write a paragraph based on a writing prompt that I had come up with, if Mark submitted it back to me and Mark needed some work, I could leave a comment for Mark and send it back to him, and we could keep going back and forth as a teacher and a student until Mark was proficient, right? And if Diane got it correct or hers was proficient right away, then I don't have to do that process with her. And in that process, we can do commenting back and forth and all kinds of neat things. So assignments are, there's much more sort of options for interactivity, and it can also make your work a lot easier. So let me show you the basic process of posting an assignment, and then we can talk about some of the options that are there. All right, so let me share the screen again and present to everyone. And let's see here. All right, very good. So I'm going to go back to the stream of my classroom as the teacher. And so the same button that we use to create an announcement is where we would create an assignment. So if I click on this button, you'll see that assignment is the second option that's available. So when I choose create an assignment, already you see it's a little bit more, not complicated, but there are a few more options right off the bat. So the first thing is giving the assignment a title. And one of the things that I usually recommend to teachers is keeping the title brief. Because if not, when students are looking at it in their stream, the title can get cut off if it's very long. So I could just say, please, or you know what, I'll even go back and I'll say election writing assignment. And I could call it whatever I wanted. Okay. Instructions is where you'd really want to put, if you wanted to go into much more detail about what the students were doing. So I could say, you know, please find a Google Doc attached. Add your thoughts on the presidential election. And Mark, no comments. All right, and I could put lots more information here. Right away, again, so on an announcement, there's no due date. We could schedule it so it wasn't posted until later, but there was no due date for students because they weren't handing anything back in. So here on an assignment, you can actually set a due date if you want. You don't have to, so you can actually get rid of the due date and just make it open-ended. So if this was, let's say, you know, a project-based class, and they were going to have the whole term or the whole year or the whole month to do this, you could get rid of the due date. If you have a due date, though, it shows up in the students in their work section, and it tells them when it's due, so it's kind of a nice thing to do, even if it's just a soft date. So if I say it's due on May 13th, I don't even have to put a time, but that way it'll show in the students' work section that it's due. So I've got my title, I've got my instructions, and I have a due date. And I've got the same 4 buttons here that I had for an announcement. So I can attach any type of file, so a picture, a PDF, a sound file, a Word document, anything that's a file on my computer, I can attach to this assignment. Okay? I can attach a Google Doc or anything from my Google Drive, and we're going to come back to this in a minute because there's a very powerful feature buried in here. But you can absolutely get anything from your drive and send it to your students. You can send them a YouTube video. So if there was a video that I wanted to send them, I could search YouTube, and I say this every time I do this in front of teachers, you never ever want to search YouTube in front of students because you don't know what's going to come up, right? Yes, I know, we're all sort of giggling because that's happened to all of us, hopefully not very often. But I could search YouTube here, you know, in the safety of my own home where no one's looking. Or if I already have the address of the YouTube video, I could copy and paste it here. All right. But I'll just do the beauty of algebra because I know that's a safe one from the Khan Academy. And so I can add YouTube videos, all of those things, and then I can, just like an announcement, I can add a link. So I can add a link to mathisawesome.com. Okay, I don't think that's a real website, but it probably should be. All right. So once I've got my resources, and we'll go back to the Google Drive button in a minute, the same thing I could do with an announcements available here in the assignment. So I can choose to send that assignment to multiple classes. So again, if I have more than one class, this is a really efficient way to get the assignment out to more than one class, okay, just by choosing the different classes. The only thing that you have to be aware of, though, is if you do this, you can't have separate due dates for different classes. They would all have that same due date. So if you don't want separate classes to have the same date for the assignment, then you might want to do it separately. All right, so I'll just leave it for that. I can, where it says assign here, I can schedule it for later, just like the announcement. So I could say don't post this until tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. I could save it as a draft, just like we did with the announcement, so I could go back and keep working on it and not lose what I did. Or I could just assign it to the students, and then it will show up in their stream right away. So all the same options. So let's talk a little bit about this Google Drive option and talk about some of the things that are here that can make your life really, really easy. So if you have your documents, if you have something that you want to share with students or even a template that you want them to use, it's worth taking the time, if it's not already in a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet or a Google slideshow, to put it in that format. And the reason why is when I click Attach Google Drive Item, it's going to show me my entire Google Drive, and obviously my drive is, I've got lots and lots of stuff in my drive. But, yeah, no laughing, Cindy. But let me go and I'll find...
At least yours is organized.
I was going to say, mine is pretty organized. So let me go in here, and so here is, here we go. So here's something I want to send to my students. It's a Google Doc, and I want to send it to my students. And I could have searched for something in my drive. So you'll see that it attached it here to the assignment. But to the right of that, there's a new little pull down that only shows up if it's a Google Doc, a Google slideshow, or a Google spreadsheet. And there are three options here. The first one is students will be able to view the file. So if I send this to all of you, you'll be able to open the Google Doc, but you won't be able to make any changes. So if this was, let's say, a syllabus or a reading assignment, and you didn't necessarily want kids to actually edit it, this is a good way to push it out to them. Students, of course, can make their own copy. So they could go to File and choose Make a Copy and make their own copy of this. But this way, they all just get to see the file. The second version is students can edit file. And what this does is basically everybody gets sent this Google Doc or Google Spreadsheet or Google Slideshow, and all the students will get edit privileges. So they all can change that same file. So this is a great way to do like brainstorming activities with kids. However, if I sent this document, my nice document that took me hours and hours and hours to work on, and I gave all my students the ability to edit it, they're going to change my original, which I may or may not want. So the third option is the most powerful. So I can choose to make a copy for each student, and what Classroom is going to do in the background is going to take my Google Doc or my spreadsheet or my slideshow, and it's automatically going to make a copy for each student, and it's going to put the student's name in the title of their copy, and it's going to distribute it to them. So they will all have their own individual copy, and mine will stay exactly the way it was, and they can all work on their own. So these three options are really, really powerful. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete this just for, actually no, let me leave this here. I'm going to quickly create a new Google Doc that's blank, and I'll send that to you because there's nothing in it that I have to worry about getting rewritten, so we'll call this Classroom PD document. Classroom PD doc, and that's all we need. We'll leave it blank. So this could be a writing prompt, right? So I could have a paragraph here with the question, and that could be the prompt that I send out to kids. This could be a template of a lab report. This could be a Google slideshow template that kids can start with. It could be a template of a spreadsheet. It could be anything. So now if I go to my Google Drive and I go find Classroom PD doc, there it is, and I give you each a copy. So now when I assign this, and it can take a minute for an assignment to post, so you see I clicked the blue button and it took a minute for my screen. So that has set out this assignment to each of you in your stream, and you'll notice some other things that are different here for me as the teacher. So when I create an assignment, for the number of students I sent it to, it'll show me how many students have finished the assignment and how many have not. And we can go through this more the next time, so you can keep an eye on how many kids have actually completed the assignment. So let's look at Classroom from a kid's point of view here. So I'm going to go, and so I'm logged in here as a student. And so as a student, this is what I would see from Paul Barrett. Okay, so here is my election writing assignment. I see the YouTube video that my teacher has sent me. I see the link to the mathisawesome.com website that he sent to me. And I see an open button. If I, as the student, click the open button, it opens up the assignment. It's giving me a tour, which I don't really care about. And then I'll see any of the Google Docs here, or Google Spreadsheets, or Google Slideshows that the teacher has given me. So when I click on this as a student, you'll see at the top of my screen, it created a copy specifically for this student with her name, Clara Oswald. Okay? I'm not going to voice type right now. That would be bad. So every student has their exact copy. So I can type in what I want. Okay, I can do everything that a student would do typically. You'll also notice that here at the top of my screen as the student, I have a different button here in Google Docs that I never ever see unless it's coming from Classroom. I see a button that says Turn In the upper right hand corner. So when I click on Turn In as a student, it's going to ask me, are you sure you want to turn in this work? This one attachment will be submitted for the assignment election writing assignment. And so I can decide to cancel that, or I can choose to turn it in. So as the student, I've turned that into the teacher. You'll see on the student's screen now that it's marked as done. So I've actually finished that assignment here as the student. From the teacher's point of view, so now from the teacher's point of view, I see one of my students has done the assignment. She's turned it back into me. So if I click on that, it'll show me the assignment. It'll show me any Google Docs here. So there's Clara Oswald's document, and I also see there's Clara Oswald, and it's showing that she is done and all of these other people are not done. So if I want to look at Clara's document, I just have to click on it from there, and you'll see there, now me as the teacher, I have access to Clara's document. So I could leave her a comment saying, spelling needs work, or whatever that comment would need to be.
I have a question for you.
Yes, and yes, go ahead.
Okay, if multiple teachers are on a Google Classroom, will multiple teachers get access and be able to return it, or is that going to be a problem? Because the English teacher and I both have a classroom, and it seems like every time the students turn something in and she replies back, they always have to share it with me again. It doesn't automatically stay shared with me.
It should be shared with all teachers, but I do want to show you something that does happen. So as the student, as soon as I turn that work in, the teacher gets their copy like I just showed you. So here's the teacher and here's the copy from Clara. But let me go back to the student view for a minute. So let me go back to Clara. So here's Clara. Now if I go back into this document as Clara, once I turn it in, it becomes view only. So now, as soon as the student turns it into the teacher, he or she can no longer edit it. So here I am as Clara, and I'm trying to type furiously, and I can't make any changes. Here's the other bad thing, though. You saw that, excuse me, as a teacher, I left a comment for Clara. Because the document is view only, Clara doesn't see the comment.
Okay.
So the way that Clara would be able to see the comment would be for me as the teacher, after I'm done making all of my comments and suggestions, I would return the document to her. And once I do that, and this is probably what's happening with the example you just talked about, once the teacher returns the document to the student, then the student regains editing rights. So I'm thinking if one teacher returned it to that student and the other teacher didn't look at it yet, that's probably why that second teacher missed it. But let's take a look at what that looks like. So here I am, I'm the student, I only have view-only rights because my teacher has it now and she or he has not returned it to me. So let's go back and look at the teacher. All right, so here I am as the teacher, and so I'm going to open up Clara's again. Okay, and I can add more comments and all that good stuff. All right, so add more comments. And of course, I can also use suggesting mode, and we can talk about that another time because that's a really powerful tool. It's like track changes in Word. But I can leave these comments and do all that stuff, and once I'm done, so now here I am, I'm the teacher, and I'm looking at the students who have done the assignment. So Patty's done it and Clara has done it. If I want to send this assignment back to Clara because she needs to do some more editing or more work, I check the box next to Clara's name, and now when I click return, it's going to give me a little pop-up saying return work to this one student. I can leave her a comment like, did you even pay attention? All right. Obviously, I would never be that rude to a real student, but I can leave any comment I want. I can also leave a, if I had graded it, and we'll talk about that another time as well, she would see what the grade would be. Once I hit return, you'll see now here on my screen, it marked Clara's assignment as returned. So Patty's is done, Clara's is returned. And now if I look at it from the student's point of view as Clara, so if I go back into this document here, I might have to refresh it, or I could even go back into it from Classroom. Actually, you know what? Let me not rush that. So here I am as Clara the student. You'll notice now the assignment that used to be marked as done, it's now marked as returned. And there's a comment from the teacher. Did you even pay attention? And you'll see that comment is marked as a private comment. So the rest of the class doesn't see this comment. This was just between the teacher and the student. So now that it's returned, if I as the student open that document back up, you'll notice now it no longer says view only. I see all of the comments from my teacher, so I can reply back and say, my bad, my 4-year-old brother did this. And we can have that nice rich conversation, teacher and student, and then I can also make edits. And I can say, whatever I want in the document. Okay? So you can have, oops, it helps if you spell TARDIS right. Okay. So you can have that student turn the work in, teacher look at it, return it back to the student as many times as you need for the student to show proficiency. So if you're in a school that's working on standards-based grading or students not moving on until they show proficiency, this is a great way to be able to give some kids the ability to do it multiple times, and then the kids that are done, that's okay. You know, you don't have to return their document to them. So I'm going to turn this back in to my teacher. And you'll see that Clara now, it'll say the assignment has been resubmitted. And we could go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So from the teacher's perspective, Clara says her assignment says resubmitted. Okay? So let me unshare my screen and let's talk about what questions you may have from what I just showed you. And
Paul,
that's going to be... Oh, yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
I'm sorry. Sometimes kids are able to unsubmit. Is that
Yes.
available in all, in all of the views, or when does that occur?
So it occurs, so let me go back, Cindy, and I'm going to give it back to this. Oh, actually, no, I don't have to do that. So what Cindy's talking about is, let's say I'm Clara, the student, and I turn my work into Mr. Barrett, and then I realized, oh, I totally missed something that he asked us to do. So before Mr. Barrett looks at it or before he grades it, what I can do as the student is I can take it back and I can make some more edits and then turn it back in. So let me show you what that looks like. That's a great point, Cindy. So let's reshare that, present to everyone. And so let me show you. All right. So from the student's point of view, so here I am, Clara. I've got my assignment that's been resubmitted. You'll notice down here, and the button is kind of grayed out, so they don't put a big red button for students to say, yeah, unsubmit this assignment. But there is a button here that says unsubmit. So if I, as the student, click that, it's telling me, do you really want to unsubmit this? If you do this, you have to resubmit it once you're done. So I'm going to click unsubmit. And so what that does, Cindy, is it pulls back the document from the teacher and it gives me editing rights again. So now if I'm the student and I go back into the document, because I unsubmitted it, I still have edit rights, which is nice. So if I made a mistake and I didn't mean to hit turn in, I can pull it back. So Cindy, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, exactly, because I've had students use it, but I'm not always sure when that's available, but that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's pretty much available the whole time. So it's one of those, I think, conversations to have with kids, like, listen, maybe after this date, please don't unsubmit it, and if you need more time, I'll return it to you, or if there are edits that need to be made. But yeah, they pretty much have that ability all the time, which is good. So any other questions about that? Because that was a lot in one chunk.
No, I think I'm good.
So how many people have actually given their students assignments and have had them turn in work that way?
I have.
I have.
What types of issues or questions have you or your students run into?
The sharing issue like I was talking about between the different teachers, that's definitely been a problem, but maybe there's been new updates and we'll just have to check it out again. They're doing a writing assignment now.
Okay, so Barbara, one of the things that we can do is, so Mark and I are co-teachers in this classroom, so he and I can actually play with it between now and the next Hangout, and we can see if we can figure out exactly what might have been happening and let you know, so that way you won't have to, you'll know exactly when it happens and when it doesn't happen.
All right, thank you.
Any other things that you or your students have run into when you've used the assignment feature the way that I demonstrated?
I don't think so.
To me, the thing that confuses people the most, especially in the beginning, is once students turn it in, if teachers leave comments on the document itself, they can't see those comments until the teacher returns it to them. So that's something for you as a teacher to really know, because if you write all these great comments but you don't return the assignment back to the kids, they won't be aware of those. So that's one of those little things that that I think Google needs to come up with a fix, because I think kids should be able to see the comments even if you don't want them to edit the document. Okay. So I think what we'll do for next time, and I'll send out an assignment, is what I'd like you to do is to just pretty much come up with something like we just did in your own test classroom, or you could certainly do it in your real classroom with your real students. Create an assignment, give them some type of Google Doc, whether it's a blank one like I did, or it could be one with a writing prompt or a a template, and play with that turn in and return cycle with students. And if you want to, it might be easier to play with your test class, so you're not actually going back and forth with students and aggravating them, but or they're aggravating you. But that, I think, would be a good first assignment for this week. Next week, I'd like to get in. There are some more advanced features in assignments that we haven't talked about grading assignments yet. And we haven't talked about if you wanted to give out an open-ended assignment. So right now, when you give an assignment to kids within Classroom, there's no way to really differentiate. So I can't give an assignment to 5 kids out of my entire class. I have to give it to everybody. But there's some ways that you can make assignments much more flexible and give kids a lot more choice, or as people like to say, a lot voice and choice in how they show what they know. So we can talk about that the next time. Any questions that people have that you're dying to know before we sign off for the night?
I just have one. Every time you decide to open up an assignment and edit again, does the student get an email on that every time?
That's a great question, Barbara. So it depends on how the student has set up their notifications. So let me show you the student screen real quick here. So every user in Classroom, whether you are a teacher or a student, you control your own notifications.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go to Clara's screen here. All right, so here is Clara, the student. And so when I'm in Classroom as Clara or as a teacher, when I click on that upper right, left-hand corner, what we refer to as the hamburger menu or the main menu, when you scroll down to the bottom, there's a settings option. And so by default, you'll see that email notifications are turned on, Barbara.
Yes.
So if this is left on, they should get a notification. Okay. However, what a lot of our students have found in Smithfield, and I know a lot of our teachers have found, that if you leave this on, you can get buried in email because you'll constantly be getting emails from Classroom. So I know a lot of people do turn this off.
Okay.
So if the student turns it off, they won't get a notification. So you might want to, send them a quick email. Obviously, if you see them in person, you could tell them, hey, listen, I returned this document to you. But you as the teacher can't control this for your students. They have sort of independent control over this. So I can tell you that I have 2 middle school students here in my house. One of them is Cindy's student. And one of my middle school students has turned off notifications because they can't stand all the emails. And one of my students leaves them on because they're afraid of missing something if they don't have the email. So it really sort of depends on the student. But that's a great question. It's one of those things that's sort of hidden that each individual person has their own control over.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul, I just changed the due date on the election writing assignment that you had posted.
Okay.
And you would have gotten an email if after I saved the thing, only because everybody would have gotten an update on the due date. Correct?
Okay. I believe so. So let me check for Clara here. So I was fooling around with Clara's settings, though, Mark. So I wonder if it's going to... Clara's obviously a test account, so I don't have to worry about it.
My settings are on to receive notifications, and I did not get an email.
I didn't either.
So you know what? I'll dig a little deeper into that just to see exactly when kids get emails or anybody gets an email and when they don't.
Okay.
Because it looks like as the student, I got an email when it was returned. So Barbara, your question about do students get notifications when you return things to them, they absolutely do if they have email turned on, because here's the email that Clara got from me. Okay? So if they have notifications on, they'll see that, and they also get notifications if you leave them a private comment. Okay? But it doesn't look like they get notifications if, like, you change an assignment. So that's interesting. We'll have to dig into that a little bit more.
Okay.
Any other questions tonight? No? Okay, good. All right, so what I will do is, this has been recorded again, so I will edit it a little bit probably tomorrow because I'm done with this tonight. I'm going to go watch some mindless TV. And I'll post it to the classroom so that it's there for people who want to go back and reference it. And everything that we've done is in that handout that I also posted. So if while you're working on the assignment this week you have any questions, feel free to ask Mark or Kim or I, and also you can look at the handout. All right?
All right, thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks. Have a great
Appreciate
night.
it.
Happy,
Thanks.
happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Paul.